looking after I was director of military affairs.
Right, right. Yes, so because DISA has a pretty large component of experts from MOD. Very short while, in fact, I was assigned also as DISA, but then I had to shift to another division, which was probably had was facing different kind of issues.
In those in that short span, I what I managed to do was actually when I was in VIF, I conceived this idea of India joining the security architecture of the Indian Ocean Commission, which includes Mauritius, and the
Yes.
Djibouti Code of Conduct. So I've been meeting all the secretaries from my VIF days. But finally, when I reached DISA in those 5 months, I managed to write the concept note, and today India is part of the two.
That
Inter-
I did make some
It was
contribution.
my conception. So from conception to finally execution,
Yeah.
completely I can take. I can say that I was able to do
Yeah.
it.
Because we had some strange feelings about Indian Ocean Commission, right? And when I was High Commissioner in Mauritius, these guys will come and meet me off and on, and they will say, "What is India doing? Why is India not there?" Hmm.
So
And
it took me some time to convince the Ambassador Thakur, who was my secretary. I told
uh,
her, ma'am, do you know that in 2016 China joined the Indian Ocean Commission and India is not part of it? And that time, the Indo-Pacific Joint Secretary, Additional Secretary, now Ambassador to USA to UK, he said, "Acha, I didn't know that." I said, "Please." That day, the flash signal was sent.
yes,
All ambassadors to work and make this thing happen. It took
yeah.
about 3 months, and we joined.
No, in fact,
And
I wrote to Delhi when I was there,
yeah.
making argument that staying out doesn't serve any purpose.
No, you will be surprised, sir, that in this month, this year, in March, we have Indian Ocean Commission. Our IFC IOR was not even mentioned in the document of IOC. But today, IOC is collaborating with IFC IOR, which is in Gurgaon.
So you see,
So we have a footprint.
we had some, I think, uh, if I could just kind of share that element, which those days was more difficult to share, but now, of course, things have gone past. We somehow had this fear that if we bring the Indian Ocean Commission into this, then our own salience within the IORA may suffer. Now, there was no question of that. You see, I don't know. Sometimes, we take very narrow view of things.
You see,
So,
that was the perception, sir. But if
mm,
you remember, for shortly, Comoros was the president of Indian Ocean Commission,
yeah,
and that is the time because they were completely bought out to China.
mm,
They were just not letting India uh, influence the security architecture of the Western Indian Ocean. So,
yeah,
if you want to influence that, so the entire Western Indian Ocean is covered by the Djibouti Code of Conduct and Indian Ocean Commission.
correct.
So it was very important that we enter these two organizations, and I took it upon myself. It took me 2 years. Finally, we are in, sir.
I wrote the first letter to those guys, you know, saying that, don't worry, we are working on this. So I'm very happy that, later on we joined those organizations, because in my view is very clear. Being outside the room doesn't serve any purpose. If something is going on inside a room, better be inside. So even if they are your enemies, you must know what they're discussing. And if they are friends, of course, you will take advantage of that
You see the
conversation.
example of SCO and the BRICS. India is
Yeah,
inside and trying
yes.
to scuttle all the initiatives of China, especially de-dollarization, BRI, etc. So it's possible only if you're inside. We are on both sides. I call it bridging the multipolarity. So
Yes, yes.
we are on SCO side also and Quad also. It's
Yeah.
a great impact. Only India can do that.
Yeah. In fact, I had a senior colleague who used to joke. He said, even if you have to piss, be inside and piss.
Thank you, sir. I think we'll get started, sir. Nishtha, over to you. Dr. Satish Shenoy, sir, thank you very much for joining us, sir. Welcome on board, sir.
Good morning, Arnav. Good morning to Ambassador Mudugal.
Very good morning to you.
Other
Good to see you.
dignitaries there. Good morning to all of you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Welcome. Over to you, Nishtha.
Thank you, sir. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the webinar entitled Review of UDA Research and Innovation Activities by MRC's Research Advisory Board. I'd like to welcome all of you, all the dignitaries and our panel of the Research and Advisory Board. So in our Research and Advisory Board, we have with us Dr. Satish Shenoy, who's the former Director of Inquiries. We have Professor Radhika Seshan, ma'am. She's a maritime historian. We also have Dr. Somen Banerjee, who is the strategic expert. We have Professor Varsha Kelkar Mane from University of Mumbai and Dr. Vijay Kumar from IIT Chennai. Now I'd like to quickly call Ambassador Anup Muddal, sir, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Nishtha. Thank you so much. And I thank MRC and Arnav for giving me this opportunity to be here in this, I think, very, very important event, Arnav. I'm sure all the participants are aware of what MRC does and what kind of commitment Arnav has towards those goals. I have been associated with sustainable issues for a very long time. In my bilateral capacity, in my own personal inclination towards sustainability, the environmental issues, we have come to a stage where the land is shouting loud and clear that, sorry, I don't have more to support you in your developmental process, because the way we have been exploiting the land-based resources, we have simply exhausted the land of those resources. I would not go into, for example, the Earth's overshoot day and all that stuff. I'm sure you know it. Considering this, in fact, there is a feeling and truth that the mankind will now gradually rush to the oceans for filling those gaps. Now, ocean is not new when it comes to providing resources to humanity. Ocean has always been there and has been providing critical resources to mankind in its growth and development. But now we are looking at expanding that scope of our engagement with the ocean. We want to expand the traditional sectors. We want more food from the ocean. We want more energy from the ocean. We want more services from the ocean. We want to expand into new areas like minerals and renewable energy and pharmaceuticals and biotechnology, so on and so forth. Now, when we and seabed mining, of course, now that is where, in fact, people who were associated with the sustainability issues, suddenly their eyes popped up. They said, my God, now having messed up the land, are we going to mess up the oceans also? Because the oceans were already suffering. They were suffering of pollution. They were suffering from acidification. They were suffering from warming. They were suffering from loss of biodiversity. Now, in case we were going to expand our engagement in the same manner as we have done in the past, then of course, it was a major sign of concern. And that is where, in fact, the whole idea of, blue oceans or blue economy at the Rio conference, the small development SIDS, as we call them, small island states, they were very worried, as we were discussing, Captain Saab, just now, that these states, they say we are small lands, but we are very big oceans. So our future depends on ocean. So they were very worried that if you come all guns blazing to the ocean, then we may face very severe consequences. Now, these consequences would not only diminish the ocean's capacity to provide those resources which we are seeking, but can also go beyond. It could be a major danger to the larger global oceans, including the overall environment degradation, which means in terms of global warming, which people are projecting as an existential threat for mankind. If that is so, then what do we do? Now, engagement with ocean and harnessing those resources, we like it or not, it will happen. Because if we are aiming to expand our global economy from roughly $100 trillion today to over $200 trillion in the next 10, 15 years, you will need immense amount of resources. And where will they come from? Land doesn't have it, right? So we'll go to the ocean. So we have to understand that not going to the ocean for resources is no more an option for humanity. But then, can we go the way we have done always in the past? That answer is no. We need to find a better way, which means the oceans have to be both healthy and safe. If we want to take advantage of this huge water body to provide materials and food and services and all that stuff, then there are two basic requirements. A, the ocean has to be healthy. B, the ocean has to be safe. Now, when we talk about, say, ocean safety, security and safety, a large chunk of safety and security manifests itself on the surface, over water, and a small part underwater. When it comes to the health of the ocean, 90% of the health implications, they manifest underwater. We only see the symptoms over water. We see the consequences over water, but all the causes and the dynamics and the feedback loops, they happen underwater. And I will repeat, Arnab, I have been saying that, so we have not been paying sufficient attention to underwater. We have done a lot of stuff over water in terms of various space applications, other applications to monitor what's happening, and even the R&D in terms of the biochemical and physical happenings on the surface, because you can see it. When you can see it, it becomes more immediate in human mind. And as a result, you respond to that. But underwater, we don't see it. Underwater is out of sight, out of mind. As a result, very little research and work has been done on underwater. And we say MDA, marine domain awareness. But mostly it is surface marine domain awareness. But let's expand the whole thing, because marine is not on the surface, for God's sake. When you come to the surface, the marine ends there. It's the end of the marine environment. Its interface with the air is the end of the marine environment. if you want marine domain awareness, largely it is underwater. And that is where, Arnav, I have been congratulating you for so many years now. Very few people are paying attention to underwater. And now the issue is, what is the prerequisite there? Now we know that the causes are underwater. The pollution is underwater, the biodiversity loss is underwater, the global warming is underwater, acidification is underwater. Now what do? Our knowledge of underwater is very limited. And without knowledge, we can't find solutions. The starting point of a solution or understanding a problem is knowledge, and finding a solution is knowledge, and that is missing. You know, when my colleagues tell us, oh, we only understand 5% of the ocean. Now, you can't really expect to take good decisions if 95% is unknown. And the more complicated part of the story is that this is happening at very, very minute scales, but with very large implications. Be it the chemical phenomena, be it the biodiversity phenomena, be it the physical phenomena, whatever we look at, these things are happening at very, very micro level. But their implications are extremely macro, right? And they can really derail our whole vision of, you know, with this imagination of $200 trillion, $300 trillion. So where will they come from? Now, if we are worried about our prosperity, if you are worried about our standard of living, if you are worried about our growth and development, I think we need to worry about the oceans. And there the starting point, do we know the oceans? And that is where the importance of UDA. And MRC has been working on this now for quite some time. But given the complexity of the issue, I think there was a need. Those people who are embedded into the complications of these things, can they advise MRC whether we are on the right path or not? We can do a huge amount of research, but if it is not vetted and verified by the experts, then we again run the risk of reaching wrong conclusions. Now, that is the importance of this research advisory board, where, Arnav, you need expertise from different domains of ocean affairs, ocean science, so that they are able to tell MRC, because you have about now, what, 50 plus, 100 plus young IITians and IIT graduates and postgraduate working on UDA. You know, my issue is that they are all experts in their own domain. But a solution will emerge by connecting those domains into one solution, right? How we apply that knowledge to finding solutions. Because somebody will tell you, all right, I have done the gas composition of ocean up to a depth of, say, 2 kilometers. But then what do we do with it? How do we connect it to a solution? You see, pure knowledge itself will not be able to help. It needs to be connected in such a manner that we have practical, visible, doable solutions to solve our problems. And that is where it's a multidisciplinary. That is where you need expertise from different domains, where they are able to assess the knowledge that MRC is gathering and then tell you, okay, if you put this knowledge with this configuration, we can solve a problem. You see, we have to be in the business of solving problems. MRC is not a university where you can do basic research and publish a lot of papers. MRC is a solution provider. Yes, for solution provider, the knowledge has to be converted into solutions. And that is where this is a wonderful step you have taken to set up the research advisory board. Maybe in due course, you may further expand it. And this will be a turning point in what you, and even I can say we, what we are doing at MRC, right? I know it's a long shot, right? It's a very, very challenging destination that you have in mind, and we all have in mind. And this destination we will only achieve when we have 360-degree understanding of the ocean. Yes. So with these words, really, I thank you, Erna, for doing this. I thank the experts for having consented to join this. I welcome you all to please contribute. You see, I am not in this business for any recognition or any privilege. Yes, I seek no privilege and no power, no, nothing out of it. My only interest in this is because of my inner driven interest in sustainability, right? So I will really, if you think I'm useful, I will always be there. But if you think I'm not useful, I'll be very happy to watch from the outside. So with these words, I thank you very much, and I welcome all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador Mudgal sir. Now I'd like to call Dr. Arnab Das, Arnab sir, for sharing his comments about the work that goes out at MRC and other things related to that. Please, sir, please take over.
Thank you, Nishta. I'll also share my screen. First of all, Mudgal sir, thank you so much. There cannot be a better welcome and opening address for this particular interaction today. Today's meeting is specifically to brief our formally constituted research advisory board. Although all of them have been associated with MRC for a while now, and I have personally worked very closely with all of them. But now we realize, I mean, we have covered a little distance, and now we feel that there's a very critical requirement to have a more formalized structure, formalized way of working. And that's why starting with the research advisory board, but as I was mentioning a little earlier also, we will require a couple of other such advisory boards. One is definitely on a strategic level. Second, also an industry connect. The third I see is for sustainability and climate change. These are becoming very, very critical. So, and also yesterday I was in Delhi for a one-day visit, and I had a very fruitful day. I would like to particularly mention, I met the Chief of Personnel in the Navy, Admiral Suresh Berry. I met Dr. Vijay Kumar sir from Ministry of Earth Sciences, who is driving the blue economy policy on behalf of the ministry. I was also at the Department of Science and Technology. We are now being evaluated by for being a research center. And I also met Mr. Tarun Basu from the South Asia Monitor, and a journalist who has been into the strategic domain for a long time. What I realize is that I think today underwater domain and the importance is reasonably well understood. It is also acknowledged that there is a gap in our understanding. So that's a very good launch pad for us to contribute. And another aspect before I move forward is that our team has done a reasonable job. I must acknowledge the contribution of various interns and fellows who have contributed to our body of work. Our focus has been on the body of work. And my team, my core team, which you will be seeing some of them, and some of them may not be seen today, but you will see them on and off. I think they have done a remarkable job in terms of building the backend infrastructure, building the connections with various organizations, understanding the various interlinkages that we need. Also, we have now a team of young engineers whom I call the backbone, because whatever is generated has to be kind of continued and also worked upon to make sure that they remain relevant. So I have titled this presentation as Digital Transformation for Safe, Secure, Sustainable Growth for All in the Tropical Waters of the Indian Ocean Strategic Space. I think you have seen the composition of the RAB also, and Ambassador Mudgal sir comes from the diplomatic community. I think it does not require any more reiteration that we are in a globalized world, and we have to make sure that whatever we are doing has to be relevant for the larger global community. I think this we have seen again and again, but today the importance of the tropical waters is well understood. But what is not understood is that tropical waters requires a very different kind of expertise. What the West has been pushing is not relevant to us. So I see that as a major contribution for MRC going forward. How to tame the tropical waters, or how to overcome the challenges. And also today what we see is that we are suffering the challenges but not able to capitalize or not able to take advantage of the opportunities that are there. So we have to reverse this trend. And real world problem solving, as Mudgal sir has repeatedly emphasized, has to be a balance between people, economy and nature. Unless we are able to achieve that, we can't forget the communities that are involved. We have to make sure that there are economic gains, otherwise there is no motivation to be there. And while we are pushing aggressively for economic gains or whatever extracting of resources, we can't forget the sustainability aspect. Or now today, climate change has become a very critical aspect. So we have tried to make sure that all the projects, and another big achievement I would like to take note of here is that at least we have been able to sensitize a lot of high caliber kids or the next generation into what is underwater and what is the importance of underwater. I mean, all these IIT kids, whether they continue to work in underwater is not important, but wherever they go, in a very early stage of their life, they have been introduced to what is UDA, and they have at least gone through the various presentations done by their fellow interns and fellows. So they do understand the nuances and the importance. So I feel that is a very, I can now very proudly say that MRC has churned at least 100 plus IIT students, and this number is only growing. More than 200 plus BITS Pilani students. I would say about 300 to 400 other students who have worked with us and who understand, who have at least known what is UDA, and various other multidisciplinary students who have worked with us. And this also, our platform provides a multidisciplinary environment. Now, India in the 21st century, I think we are at a very, very critical juncture. There is a recognition at the top level that this is important. There are certain limitations in terms of capacity and capability building, but I think we together can work on this. So I see this as a very good opportunity for us going forward to make a difference or make a contribution. So Sagar Vision is all there. I don't want to repeat all this. I think the audience knows about it. There are such mega projects. So I just want to tell the young generation that if you can acquire the right kind of skills and knowledge, the opportunities are waiting for you. And not just the government, but the private sector is also very much sensitized now, and they are definitely looking at it seriously. And I think Mudgal sir will also agree to me that in a couple of months, the new blue economy policy, India's blue economy policy, and when I say India's blue economy policy, I think it means a lot. I mean, today, India is being taken very seriously. And now when India declares its blue economy policy, and particularly the kind of geostrategic and geopolitical standing that we have in the global context, I think it's a very important announcement. And so our next generation should definitely be looking at it and prepare themselves accordingly. Now, this is the framework which you have seen repeatedly. So our effort is to populate all the smaller cubes that you see in this. I mean, there could be thousands of smaller cubes that are there, and we are trying to reach out. And if you look at our body of work, we have tried to populate as many. We get multidisciplinary students, multidisciplinary young professionals who are working on it. And it is only this, we are trying to scale it up in a very different way. I'll not go beyond this, but we are trying to cohesively maneuver and cohesively navigate this going forward. And of course, user academia industry partnership in the Blue Economy Task Force of the FICCI, where I must acknowledge Mudgal sir has been really very kind to make me part of it. But I think we can contribute significantly into this aspect. And we are working specifically on each of them. And you will hear from Catherine and Nishtha also on how we are also generating the right kind of publications to make sure that everybody is sensitized and everybody is onboarded onto this. I mean, already there are enough schemes of the Government of India. No new schemes are required. But how to stitch them together is what we are trying to do. And we would also seek support from everybody to make that happen. Marine spatial planning, I think, has become the buzzword in the global community as far as ocean governance or the maritime governance is concerned. I think we as an organization have done very specific work to make sure that MSP is driven at a very different level. Mudgal sir will acknowledge our last meeting where we had the Norwegians also who made a presentation, and they have got a formal contract from the Government of India also. But the difference that we are pushing is that they are looking at deploying equipments or deploying sensors and collecting data. But I don't think that's a viable solution. We are doing it in a very, very different manner where we are using extensive modeling and simulation techniques where deployment of sensors, which is a very, very costly proposition, is minimal. So our solution is extremely cost effective and probably very, very value intensive, where it can give a lot of value. We don't have much time, but I would request Sridhar to give a sense of what we are doing and what kind of backend infrastructure we've already built. And this is a work in progress, but I think there's a lot to be covered, but it's very interesting that we at least have the building blocks more or less ready, which can be now plugged in across various applications. Quickly to look at the capacity building, I mean, I have considered three broad streams. I call it livelihood also, but also broad opportunities. One is data scientists, because there's a lot of data. When you talk about digital transformation, there's a lot of data that is going to come. So we need experts or people who understand. And I think today, looking at the global context, nobody other than India can do this. I say it with a lot of confidence. I mean, we talk about the demographic dividend or demographic bulge. I think we have a lot, and if we can channelize this resource, I think there's a lot we can contribute, not just for our own country, but for the entire world. And I think we are located in the Indo-Swiss Center of Excellence. We had the Swiss ambassador, and I have had an opportunity to interact with multiple European diplomats in India. They are looking at India for the digital transformation in a very different way. I mean, everybody wants to partner India for the digital transformation because they understand what we have. So here, this is a very important aspect. But also we need domain experts. I mean, when you talk about data analytics or AI or whatever, machine learning, domain expertise is very important. I mean, you just can't do data analytics unless you understand the domain or the application requirement. So again, domain expertise is very important. And I think you can see the Research Advisory Board has stalwarts in this on multiple domains. And the third is the field deployment specialist. I mean, there is no point doing lab-based research. We are very keen on, and we have already done a couple of them, but we, at least I can say with a lot of surety that we know what to do and how to go about it. And so we would like to look at this in a very different way. And when we talk about field deployment, we would also like to involve the coastal and the riverine communities. The youngsters there, they are moving away from their traditional practices. How can we retain them there? Because their sense of the water is absolutely different. I don't think anybody can understand that. With a little bit of skilling, I think they can make real contribution, and it can also impact their livelihood opportunity, their future career option. And I think if we can align some of these things, that is our broad vision. How far we can go, I don't know, but we are definitely making serious efforts on that. So as I mentioned, data scientists will be local engineers with appreciation of data analytics. They will operate and maintain the digital infrastructure. I mean, even not just application specific data analytics, but even we need a very good backend data infrastructure. So we are trying to build something, but since the data becomes a very, very classified aspect, so I'm also discussing with the stakeholders. Like yesterday, I discussed with Navy also, and because if they take the responsibility for data, it is better, and then we can build very strong infrastructure and with very little chances of any problems going forward. So, I mean, we have designed various programs, various curriculums, academic and research curriculums, and I think, we'll be also kind of releasing some position papers which will be discussed by my team. These are some of the areas I just wanted to flag: water resource management, water quality management, inland water transport, community livelihood, fisheries, aquaculture, benthic resource exploitation, sustainable development goals. Again, there are various aspects to be covered. I'm not going to take much time. Oil and gas sector. So typically what we are following is outreach, engage, sustain. And also we are looking at setting up a center of excellence where research, innovation, skilling, academic curriculum and policy are driven under one particular umbrella. So way ahead, MSP at a global level, you will get a glimpse of what it is. Skilling at a regional and beyond. I mean, when I say regional, because tropical waters have to be understood, and I think our immediate focus is the tropical waters, but going forward, we can look at it in a more general sense also. Innovation for the world. I mean, I'm very happy to report that the diplomatic community has been extremely kind. Thanks to Mudgal sir also, and I visited Europe recently, and all the ambassadors have been really following up. So it is possible that India may be giving innovation ideas to Europe and other places. So there are a couple of things happening. I'll be updating you in our next newsletter as things happen. We also have proposals coming from university in Glasgow, and even Tokyo University and Jamstick are also keen to work with us. And there are several other institutions who are keen to work with us. And of course, community engagement, as I said, we are taking this up very seriously. We have researchers looking at this, and a comprehensive and an inclusive framework, as Mudgal sir has also reiterated, and some of my colleagues will also talk about it. So thank you very much. I think I'll stop here, and I'll hand over back to Nishtha.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to call Sridhar, who is the Deputy Director at MRC and NDT, to talk about research and innovations at MRC and NDT. Over to you, Sridhar.
Thank you, Nishtha. Sorry, I'm facing some troubles with content sharing.
We can have Catherine going forward.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Catherine, you can go first. I'll just go after you.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm the Research and Publication Coordinator at MRC. I'd like to give you a comprehensive view of the research that MRC has been undertaking over the past few years. So let me start my presentation. I'll take you through a brief about what MRC's research goals look like, and then the internships and fellowships that we've been organizing, and the research notes and position papers that we've published, and the industry relevant research that has been undertaken, and the intellectual property right and research policy that MRC has formulated to make sure that our research is ethically and ethically sound. And I'll give you a glimpse of the knowledge center that MRC has been hosting. At present, we have around more than 30 plus research and development staff. The major research domains that we have undertaken fall under the blue economy, marine environment, national security, science and technology, sound propagation and scattering. You'll find various articles and research notes published on our website under these domains. The research goal from all our all our activities is to aid the various components of underwater domain awareness and ultimately lead to acoustic capacity and capability building. And once we build these, the research body, it's we have to take it out to the stage of outreach and then engage with the stakeholders and then sustain it. So this is how whatever research we are publishing or whatever research we are undertaking through our interns, the fellows, the main goal is to make sure that it reaches a stage where we can take it to the next level. So keeping in mind the practical implications, the research is undertaken. MRC offers rigorous internship and fellowship programs. We offer very keen guidance to all the interns that are interning with us. It's a very rigorous process. A lot of deliverables are expected, and we've seen that most of the students that engage with us have been giving their best, and they've been aiding the larger body of work that we've already done. So over the years, we've had 30 plus fellows and more than 150 interns who have been exposed to project-based learning with specific focus on real-world problem solving. MRC has also been hosting UDA Summer School with around 300 plus students who've undertaken research on critical UDA themes. So the main idea is that all the interns and who join us, they work with the fellows who are fellows at MRC, and they build the solution to all the problems that we've already been taking. So we've got multiple ideas, we get multiple perspectives, we get students from different backgrounds to work on the same topic so that we get a wholesome idea and a wholesome solution to the problem. We've had students from prestigious institutes such as IITs, BITS, TERI, etc., who are now sensitized to UDA as well. At present, we have around 85 plus articles on UDA Digest platforms, around 65 plus research notes. And we have a couple of planned series, a series of 10 position papers, and the topics have been listed below, which includes marine spatial planning, ESG, sustainable blue economy, riverine communities, innovations, strategic security, economic valuation of the UDA framework. So bringing in different domains, different expertise is the main goal of getting these position papers out, how UDA contributes to different world problems. And then we've also planned a series of short reports. These are going to be from various domain experts on topics which are very crucial for underwater domain awareness. These are going to be about 10,000 words, and we've been receiving a lot of contribution, and these will be released soon. Other specialization we are looking at are anthropogenic noise, artificial intelligence and machine learning, AUVs, Indus and Brahmaputra transboundary river systems, marine life and ecosystem, marine safety and security, marine salvage, marine species, national security, sediment management, underwater archaeology, etc. Among all the research that we are doing, it's also essential and it's our vision to make sure that the research that we are producing is industry relevant. And to make sure that we do that, we hold regular interactions with stakeholders to understand the needs of the market and also streamline our research to make sure that we achieve and we align ourselves with what is actually required right now. So some of our ongoing and completed research at MRC includes acoustic method of dark ship detection, design and development of AUVs for underwater ambient noise validation, mathematical study on underwater channel modeling, URNs, radiated noise generation, and then review of 3D mapping of low frequency ambient shipping noise. There are various other research that's happening right now, which has not been included, and it's a growing body of work, and in our subsequent meetings, those will be shared as well. And various projects and the various projects that has been undertaken at MRC includes digital tool for seaweed cultivation. So as a part of the digital transformation, a lot of digital tools are being developed at present. And also we have a couple of books and book chapters that have been published and are yet to be published. And some of the noteworthy publications from over the years from all the research that we've done have been listed here, which includes AI and ML-based implementation of the underwater channel model, health hazard analysis tool, and an analysis of marine security policies, and computationally efficient model for determining sound speed in shallow tropical freshwater systems, characterization of surface sediments at Khadakwasla Lake, and validation of harmonic acoustic model, and various others which we can, which you can find it on our website. And recently, we also formulated the intellectual property right document and the research policy document, which will help the researchers at MRC to make sure that the content they're producing is safe, and at the same time, it aligns with the principles, guidelines, and procedures of an ethical research activity. So, and now I'll give you a glimpse of the knowledge center that we have on our website. So the MRC Knowledge Center can be found on Maritime Research Center website. We have the publications segmented by the domains. And then we have the publications cross-referenced by the specializations, which I've already mentioned. And then we have the various projects that we have undertaken. There are hundreds of projects that have been listed here based on the domains and expertise. So I thank you for giving me this opportunity to showcase the work that MRC has been doing. And I'm really excited to also say that we are growing the body, and we are also making sure that all the components of underwater domain awareness is covered, and we are ready to take it to solve real world problems. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Captain.
Nishta, I'm sorry to intervene. Radhika ma'am has to leave. So before she leaves, we would like to get her comments, and then we'll continue. Radhika ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Kamardas. First, my apologies for having to leave early, but I have a class which I could not reschedule. And as it takes me an hour to get to Symbiosis from my home, it's difficult for me to arrange that. Anyway, first, congratulations on all the work that you are doing, and all the best for continuing with this. I will repeat what I have said at various points to you, Kamardas, and to various others, which is that, yes, we need to talk about the current scenario, but we cannot ignore the history. If, as you have been saying, we need to look at the riverine communities in particular, we have to have a sense of what the communities were. In history, we talk about constantly continuity and change. What continues? What changes? How do you embed the change within the continuity? These are things which have to be taken into consideration. As you all know, with my area of history, I am not equipped to talk about the engineering dimensions. I have stayed as far away from the engineering part as it's possible for a human being to get. Other than using the things, I refuse to do anything more. But the fact is that we need the historical determination of what used to be underwater, what kind of changes have taken place underwater. If we are looking at ocean global warming and the rise in the ocean waters, there is mention of the expansion of plankton and algae. How does that affect underwater and community life? So while we are talking security, strategy, all of these details, I think we need to also emphasize that at the base, security, strategy, the oceans are all about human interaction with the world. And that human interaction with the world needs to be defined in historical as well as in current times. That, I think, is the key to taking this entire project forward, because many projects have tended to emphasize the present and have collapsed because the communities object to looking at only the present. For a community-centric approach, we need to carry the communities with us. And that means understanding them. So part of your field work would also have to be community-centric and community engagement in the kind of work that you are trying to do. This is not just riverine, it is also coastal. In coastal communities, yes, fisher folk, but coastal communities is also technology. They still repair their ships. How do they repair their boats? Where do they get the wood from? Who do they engage with as traders to get the wood? Where do they source the wood, and how do they know that they have to source it only from that point and nowhere else? These are what some historians have called the upstream and downstream linkages, which we have to look at in much more coherent fashion so that we can take the entire project, and I hate to use the word because everybody uses it so badly, but for holistic development, we need to bring in as many. Holistic is very badly and very wrongly used always, but I think it is necessary to go into all of these details to be able to build up a better and a more sustainable future. That's actually all that I had to say. Thank you very much for inviting me, and it'll be a pleasure to be on this board.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We'll continue to carry forward this discussion, and I really appreciate your contribution in terms of guiding our students, not only guiding, even getting the best students possible from your domain. And we look forward to this continuation. Thank you very much for your kind words, ma'am, and we'll take this forward. And I'll keep you informed on.
Yes.
We'll be definitely generating a report for this meeting, and we'll also take your views.
Ambassador Mudgal, I think you had.
Yes, I want to just, thank you for your very brief but very pertinent comments. Arnab, she's so right that there are so many lessons and solutions buried in history. There is no need to reinvent the wheel if the solution was already there. I think history has to be linked to the project that MRC is doing, because history of the underwater is absolutely essential for not repeating the history and taking advantage from the good things the history has done. So I thank you so much, Radhika ji, for I remember when we were in Pune, you reminded us, though not that I am a great lover of history, but I thought maybe on UDA, how do we connect it to history? You're so right.
Thank you so much.
It's not the first time things are happening. See? So history has the capacity of telling us, you think you are doing it for the first time? This has happened in the past and we have done it. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador. My pleasure. Good day, all of you, and I will leave now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sridhar, you can continue. Yeah. Sorry, Nishta, take over.
Thank you. Sridhar, you can take over and present.
Sure. A very warm welcome to everyone. Sorry, I had some issues to begin with. My name is Sridhar, and I hold the role of a Deputy Director at MRC. Thank you, Anup Budgal sir, as well as Radhika ma'am, for recognizing the purpose of UDA and our effort towards the same. In all honesty, I'm just another team member of MRC trying to contribute towards UDA in ways that I can. And I'll try my best to share what is the research and innovation that we do at MRC, trying to showcase the depth of understanding that we hold. And I look forward to hearing all of your thoughts on how we can improve and the areas that we can focus on. To begin with, the broader work, research work that MRC does can be categorized into 7 separate domains, starting from AIS data management, APY analysis, AUV design and development, climate change, marine spatial planning, sediment management, water and urban flood management, and a few more policy-fronted research areas that I do not hold much expertise on, but areas around geopolitics and other places that most of the research people have been working on and have delivered some amazing policy papers and work there. Uh, the listed the listed projects are all the work that I've tried to encompass. There are a few that I have skipped. However, the broader domain of the work being we are trying to do AIS error detection and correction, vessel trajectory reconstruction, trying to perform collision avoidance, create a collision avoidance system. We have a project that involves performing APY analysis for shrimp and seaweed as well as for carp farming. We've used a UV design and development process for monitoring the climate change as well as for deep sea mining. Then we've looked at figuring out the economic impact of climate change on seaweeds and shrimp farming, impact of climate change on ocean acidification, and so on. And marine spatial planning, as Sir mentioned, is an area that we are focusing on and with a whole lot of a drive. So I'll be focusing on a bit more on that front, trying to showcase our work, the process that we have followed to actually arrive at a particular system of marine spatial planning. And sediment management being a sediment classification for national maritime issues and sediment transport management projects in specific. We also have project that relates to water and urban flood management that involves groundwater management in Brahmaputra Basin, trying to understand the impact of water quality change in aquaculture, creating a multi-parameter sensor-based framework for water quality monitoring, and a machine learning-based estimation effort for nutrient concentration of Brahmaputra Basin. Keeping the time duration in mind, I'll be focusing on selected few that showcase our innovation capability. But needless to say, this and a lot more work has gone into MRC over the past few years. So, starting with the first point, the first work, now these are the areas that I'm comfortable with. Collision avoidance system. So over the years, we've had many collision avoidance system that have been developed. MRC, what we are trying to do is we are trying to integrate all the different problems that exist with AIS data at the moment, encapsulate that, and also perform some operations that allow us to remedy the problems that we have. So to begin with, we first perform AIS error detection and correction. So a lot of information that is present from the AIS data that we obtain from AIS data, we cannot be sure that it is accurate in any sense. We have found a lot of instances where the static information part of the vessel has been misrecorded or misrepresented in the AIS data that has been captured. So for example, we can see that for a particular ship, the expected ship type as per the data of World Shipping Registry or Lloyd's Registry is basically container ship. But when we received that AIS data, it was tagging itself as a tug. And a few more instances in the bottom where we say a vessel was supposed to be a dredger, but it was shown as cargo, and a vessel was supposed to be a fishing ship and it was shown as a cargo. A lot of a difference between the type of the ship there. So what we did first is that we used random forest that basically calculates the probability of vessel to be of a particular class. So you can see the results below. The idea is that based upon the different parameters of the ship, what is the ship length, ship speed, ship type, what are the other attributes that belong to the ship, we try to identify what kind of ship it actually could be, and we check if that is going hand in hand with the AIS data that has been transmitted. Because for creating a collision avoidance system based upon an AIS data which is not accurate in itself is not going to give us accurate results. So our pre-processing involves a lot of data analysis efforts where we try to identify such kind of problems, try to diagnose those problems and come up with solutions for that. Then we perform vessel trajectory reconstruction. The idea is that, so this basically helps us to account for missing AIS data and transmission. So whenever AIS data is transmitted, it's not, so there's a lot of scenarios where the AIS data that is transmitted is not always for each and every single time frame. There is a lot of missing gaps in between transmission of the AIS data. So we use historical AIS data to perform vessel trajectory reconstruction. We read over the past few months or few years what is the route that a particular ship has taken, and then we map that over the current route that the ship is currently taking, and then we reconstruct that trajectory to make sure that no information is lost in between. And after that we perform, so the collision risk index that usually is calculated is based upon the distance and the time to the closest point of approach. So a modified version basically uses that along with the zone collision index. The zone collision index is basically using the historical data and the vessel trajectory reconstruction and everything. We identify which zones have had the most collisions in the past and which zones are more prone to be having collisions in the current dynamically in the current time. So we take that into consideration, and then we identify that for a particular ship that is moving at a particular speed, what is the collision risk index of that particular vessel, and that allows us to give more accurate results in terms of what is the risk of that ship being in a collision, whether it's a less risk or a more risk. Of course, all of these projects, there is a lot more depth into it, a lot more into how we calculate, but I'm trying to give a very broad representation of the work due to the time limit. The second project that I wish to talk about is APY analysis for shrimp and seaweed farming. This is a project that we are almost on the verge of setting up currently. So the key idea here is that the amount of so what we're trying to tackle here is the productivity. The amount of aquatic species produced per unit area is what we call as productivity, and the target is to maximize the productivity. So we obtain the parameters that are required for the growth of a shrimp, like for example, the salinity, the turbidity, the pH value, temperature, and so on. And then we identify in what moderation, what are these parameters that affect the shrimp growth and how they affect the shrimp growth. And then we are trying to model that out into a mathematical plus machine learning based model that allows us to identify a certain set of properties or a certain range of values that needs to be there for temperature, salinity, and other such kind of things in a controlled environment, and what amount of feed needs to be provided so that the productivity and the growth of the shrimp is maximized. The diagram that you see on the left is basically a representation of how the experimentation is set up. We have contacted with Jala Bruno, who are our suppliers for the sensors. In a controlled environment, we try to we contact the shrimp farmers in a controlled environment. We dip these sensors. We identify what are the parameters that have been there. What is the temperature of the pond at that current point of time? What is the salinity and so on. And then we do it for over a period of time of 3 months or 4 months of time. We log that data, and using that constructed data, we are planning to put it into a machine learning model and identify the key parameters that are leading to a increase in productivity of shrimps and shrimp growth. So that's the key idea behind the project of APY shrimp and seaweed farming. And a similar work we have been doing for carp farming as well. The third project I want to look at is deep sea mining in polymetallic nodules. This work is currently in progress. We have performed the modeling stage. I have a very minimal understanding of AUV, so I'll stick to the basics. Most available works. So the key idea behind this is that most of the available work use an AUV along with a crawler, which crawls to obtain these mineral deposits that is present in the seabed, and in that process they crush they crush a few of these nodules, few of these mineral deposits, and that creates a poisonous slurry which is harmful. So what we have tried to do is that we want to go with a mechanism that allows us to extract these nodules, but at the same time limit the destruction to as minimal as possible. So our design involves two AUVs, a primary AUV and a secondary AUV. A primary AUV, the designs on the left that showcase, is the one that is equipped with sonar to identify these nodules, and it acts as a power station for the power station and collecting hub to the secondary AUV. The secondary AUV, which you can see in the bottom right, is basically attached with a attached with an arm that allows us to collect these node modules, and it then goes back and deposits to the primary AUV. And of course, if it requires a power station, so primary AUV acts as a power station for the secondary one as well. So this is what we have designed. This is the whole idea and the principle behind why we need to come up with something new for deep sea mining as compared to what earlier we have. So the key problem statement being destruction of these polymetallic nodules and the slurry that is being created along with it. The next project I want to focus on is dark ship detection. So we consider ships to be dark when these ships turn the AIS data off for any reason. For it could be wantingly or unwantingly. When we do something when we do perform inactive obtain inactive AIS due to any kind of wanting effort. We consider that to be used for some kind of illicit activities. It could be piracy and armed robbery, or it could be human, wildlife, and drug trafficking, and so on. The idea is that we cannot track the ship, we cannot track where the ship is and what is it that it is doing at the moment, and hence it's very difficult to identify or put any kind of measures in place to prevent such kind of illicit activities. There are a lot of solutions that are present, most of them which use basically most of them which use satellite imagery to identify what is the location of the ships. So AIS data is not the only data, only information, but you also have satellite imagery that will allow you to that you can match and correspond and see if the ship is actually present in that region. So if the AIS data in a particular region shows 4 ships, the satellite imagery will confirm if there are actually 4 or not. But most of these current solutions that exist, they're very difficult to obtain, since they're extremely costly to implement and consider. And secondly, the other option that we at MRC we're looking at is basically use of noise for this. So every ship is going to radiate a certain amount of noise, and we can track the amount of noise in a particular region. We can map that onto the AIS data to identify whether a dark ship is present in the region or not. So if I have to give a very generic example, if for some reason, for example, there are 4 people in a room and one of them has an invisibility cloak, the person wears an invisibility cloak and you cannot see, you can see only 3 people in the room now. But the heat that is generated from the body of a person cannot be masked. So that's the whole concept that we are applying here. The noise that is generated by the ship cannot be masked, even though the ship can turn the AIS data off. So what we are doing is that we're using satellite AIS data. We are creating a noise map, and then we are also estimating that there's a noise in the ground using sensors, and then we're trying to overlap between the both. These charts that I'm showing, they basically showcase the cumulative noise spectrum that we have obtained when there are dark ships present. Now there are two things here to consider. One is that the data that we have, the data that we have, basically the noise that we have created using satellite AIS data in itself is basically not a real world recording, but rather just a recording estimation that we have performed using the best available methods. So the orange line showcases the sensor data and the blue line showcases the AIS data on the top left figure, which basically represents that there is not more than 15% of difference in or error margin in the estimated versus the recorded noise value. Taking that into consideration, when we induce one dark ship or one dark ship in the region, we can see there's a slight difference in the noise values. But when we increase when we have more than one dark ships present in the region, you can see that there is a dip in the noise values, there's a shift in the noise that is being generated. So the estimated value being the blue line, and the green line is what we are obtaining. So that means that there is definitely a presence of dark ship, which actually is there in the ground, which the sensor is picking up, but it is not being picked by the algorithm that we are creating or we are using. So based upon the AIS data estimating of noise, that's not being picked up by that algorithm. So that shift will allow us to identify whether or not a dark ship is present in the region or not. And this is a more cost-effective method to obtain to identify whether a particular region has dark ship or not. Now, moving on to marine spatial planning, we'll be focusing a bit on the shipping noise component here, trying to delve a bit deeper into that part. Shipping noise estimation. So in order to grab the cumulative noise of the ship, there are 2 problems that we are presented with. One, most of the available models that we have currently are mathematical models, which means that they're going to take a linear time to perform the estimation. Both estimation of shipping noise as well as transmission loss, they are linear time algorithms, which means that in a given instant, if I have 1,000 ships and I perform and for each of those ships I have to estimate the noise, I have to multiply that by 1,000, number one. And second, I have to also, for estimating the transmission loss, I have to identify the ship and the receiver pairs. So we take a particular area, divide that into smaller grids, and we identify the distance between the ship and that grid point, and we figure out what is the transmission loss that would happen between the ship and the grid. And if it is less than 200 kilometers, we calculate the transmission loss. Now, this process is something that we need to do, but then it's lengthy because in a larger area of Indian Ocean region, we are dealing with around more than 1 lakh sender receiver pairs. So when we're looking at that, so as the number of ships increases or as the number of calculations increases, the amount of time required to perform those calculations increase as well, which is a linear time problem. To solve this, what we have done is we have created our own AI model, which is basically trained on the existing Vatican model. The Vatican model is the most up-to-date and used shipping estimation model that allows us to estimate the noise of the ship using parameters such as the ship speed, ship inception, cavitation inception speed, as in the speed at which the propeller cavitation starts kicking in and it starts making noise, the block coefficient, engine mass, number of engines, and various other parameters. The two problems that we try to tackle here is one, we wanted a model using which we can estimate the noise of the ship in real time, which means the information that I need to provide to the model needs to be such that I can directly obtain from the AIS data itself and not seek some additional places to obtain that information. So we have trained the model on Vatican, but we are we are predicting the noise that is generated by each ship only based on our 4 parameters of ship length, deadweight, vessel speed, and frequency at which we want to calculate. Let's assume 100 hertz for our case. So this will allow us to estimate the noise of each ship in real time with just minimal parameters and least time complexity. So these are some of the results that we have obtained. We can see that most of our results have been well under 20 decibels, and with the maximum number being 98% of an accuracy in less than 20 decibels. And as and when, of course, so basically the ships, if there are 500 ships, then we have estimated 90, we have estimated with 67.5% accuracy, most of the ship with less than just 1 decibel in time difference. So this kind of showcases the accuracy of our model that we're using to estimate the noise of the ship. Now, this was the first part of our MSP work. The second part being the acoustic propagation model. Now, as I said, the estimation of transmission loss, again, it's a linear time constraint problem, which means that as the sender receiver pair increases, the estimation of the estimating time increases, and that is something we cannot do. If we want to create a tool that generates the noise map in real time, we want to have algorithms that can perform the computation in real time. And while high performing computers are a solution to that, we now in today's day and age, we have AI that allows us to obtain similar results without using high performance computing for the same. Our effort towards this was again similar. We used a PRAM model, which is the parabolic equation based model, the best suited for Indian Ocean. We have used that. We've trained values on that and estimated the transmission loss using it. Then we used a neural network. Then we mapped all the transmission loss values onto it in order to predict the transmission loss next time. So now, at the end result of this, now we have a neural network based model that works in Indian Ocean region, where you just have to give the sender and receiver coordinates, and it automatically is trained on other parameters such as the temperature, salinity, the sound speed, basically establishing the sound speed profile, the sediment absorption rate, and other different attributes that are required. So now you have a tool that you just have to give the sender and the receiver coordinates, and it will automatically calculate the transmission loss, and that too in real time. So this graph basically showcases that for 1,000 transmitter receiver pairs, what is the total time taken? As we can see, as I was explaining the PyRAM model, it's a linear time model, so it will take a lot. It will take, as the number of pairs increases, it will keep on increasing. However, the neural network, because it's predicting and it's not really computing, it is able to, even though the number of observations increases, the amount of time that is taken is considerably less, basically making it more of a logarithmic time complexity based algorithm rather than linear, as opposed to that is the current solution. The third part is basically that of a shipping related noise estimation tool. So the given diagram showcases a 2-dimensional version of shipping related noise. The black dots that you can see on the graph represents the AIS data, and the color coded areas basically showcase the ambient noise levels in those regions with a decibel reference of 1 micropascal. This current map is for 100 hertz. And we can see that in areas where there are more concentration of ships, the amount of the total noise is increasing up to 103 dB with a maximum of 109 dB, which is a lot of noise. 109 dB is equivalent to someone shooting a pistol near your ear. And as we can see, 22 decibels being the lowest, that is near the shorelines where ships do not really move at a lot of speed. So when the ships don't move at a lot of speed, the propeller is not really creating too much amount of noise. This allows us to perform marine spatial planning. A lot of components of marine spatial planning can be encompassed, but for shipping related noise estimation per se, if we want to perform, let's say, identify which areas are more prone for marine mammals to be problematic, these kind of maps give a good representation of that. And we can see that our model is so we performed real recording of the coast of Goa for this work, and we can see that our model is performing closely with the real recording that we have performed. I'll just take a quick minute to showcase our tool here. So this is so what we saw there was a 2-dimensional version. So this is the 3-dimensional version. As we can see, the moment you open a tool, you just have to select a region in the Indian Ocean region. This tool is specific for IOR right now. So you have to select a region, or it'll automatically grab the coordinates. And the moment you try to generate a noise map, it will give you a 3-dimensional version of it with the latitude, longitude, and the depth, and showcasing at each depth and each lat long coordinate what is the noise levels or noise level values in that particular region. Encompassing all of this is what we are creating as a passive sonar simulation tool. The idea is that identifying identifying in which area we can perform deployment of sonar equipment such as a submarine or any kind of AUVs with sonars, in which depth, in which location should you deploy so that you can obtain the maximum amount of output. The current problem that we have is that because the so far depth, that is a sound fixating and ranging depth in Indian Ocean region, is way too low. So so far depth is a point at which you get the maximum amount of transmission, so least amount of transmission loss, and hence the maximum amount of transmission from point A to point B. Waters such as Russian waters or any such kind of other northern waters, the benefit that they have is that the so far depth is well above, well near the sea surface, which is 150 or 200 meters. What that means is that you can just deploy a submarine or AUV or anything at 200 meters depth, and you can get a maximum amount of transmission there without much of a transmission loss. Indian Ocean region, however, it's very peculiar because of the way our environment is designed. The heats the temperature that we have, that is 27 degrees on the surface, it requires at least 1500 meters of depth for that temperature to go down to 0 degrees. So we need at least that 1000. So we need to deploy our sensors at a depth of at least 1500 meters to obtain the maximum amount of capability for out of the sonar that we are deploying or any kind of sensor that we are deploying. The so what we are trying to do here is that and of course it's not possible to deploy everything to a huge amount of depth considering the material and the pressure that is in that region and so on. So the idea is that within the limited region that we can deploy, with which depth is going to be the best suited for us depending upon the various parameters in that region, the environment, temperature, salinity, pressure, and other wind and other factors that is taken into consideration. So we identify what is the effective deployment region for any particular sensor, and whatever we saw earlier, that is estimation of noise, because noise is an important component of signal to noise ratio. The dynamic estimation of noise allows us to gather enough information to create a logic that allows us to find a solid ground for effective deployment. I'm aware that I'm going over time, I suppose. Economic impact of climate change on shrimp production and exports. So this is one of the projects that has been done recently. What we are trying to see is that so we have formed a few hypotheses and we're trying to identify. We obtained the shrimp data from states of IOR and correlated it with environmental parameters that vary as a result of climate change, and tested that correlation between them. And we've basically we drew out a few hypotheses, and the whole idea of this project was to find whether the correlation is proving towards that hypothesis or against that hypothesis. So some of these include production of shrimp have a positive impact on greenhouse gas emissions. That is true. We've seen using our simulations, we've seen that correlation coefficient is enough to showcase it to be true. Similarly, intense rainfall has a negative impact on production of shrimp. Production and exports of shrimp are positively related. So that means that as and when we increase our production and exports of shrimp, our economic stability it can contribute towards economical stability. And high rainfall has a negative impact on exports of shrimp, which means that the moment the climate change leads to different any climate change and its parameters can have an negative impact on the exports of shrimp as well, which means that climate change is not positively impacting our shrimp production and exports, which in turn relates to our overall economic stability. The last one is basically urban flood and mitigation management using hydrodynamic models. The key effort here has been to obtain some remote sensing data, ancillary data. And what we have tried to do here is identify the flood data, identify the areas which are potentially flooded, which are affected by cropland, and which are which are the urban affected areas. And we create a model using the data that can predict these regions, and then we validated that model by comparing it against observed flood data, so that now that we have a model that using using the remote sensing data and ancillary data, now that we have this model, the next time when we are having any kind of flood, we can perform better mitigation of that. Because Brahmaputra region, because every year the Brahmaputra Valley in the northeast India experiences devastating floods and resulting to loss of life, our key focus has been to look at this Brahmaputra as a first area to start the study on, and these are the results for that. So how do we manage and deploy all of this? So we have a Bitbucket that we use for version control and updates to our services. Then we host everything onto AWS, which is a combination of our EC2 instances for running the application S3 for storage, and a MongoDB for the database that we have. There's a lot of intricacies here in between this. We have pipeline that pushes we create an image, and then we have a pipeline that automatically pushes it to EC2, and the resultant image is what gets updated onto as the newest update to the application. So the application that you just saw here, we basically can push updates to this in real time without needing the customer to actually download anything. So once they have a web application, we can just keep making updates to it, much like the OTT updates that you receive for any application. Yes, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sridhar, for your comprehensive presentation today. Next, I'm going to be sharing my screen because next is my presentation. So, hi everyone. I'm going to be talking about MRC's UDA Digest e-magazine and all that we need to know about it. I'm also going to be sharing about the tips and tricks on writing for the UDA Digest and other key related details to that. Moving on, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Nishtha Vishwakarma, and I work at MRC at the capacity of the communications lead. I also look after UDA Digest e-magazine. Today in today's presentation, I'm going to be talking about the comms and outreach plan at MRC. I'll also discuss about the UDA Digest and various domains available on UDA Digest. Our key achievements in terms of like how things have transpired in terms of our e-magazine, our experience, my experience of handling the online e-magazine, etc. So first, I'd like to talk about the comms and outreach that occurs at MRC. So this is basically MRC's way of communicating to the world. So first tool that we use for communicating is a combination of website and social media. So MRC's website, here we have everything on the website. We have the Knowledge Center, which is of great significance for all of us, wherein we have all the publications and the publication summaries as well. My colleague Catherine just talked about it. She also took you through the entire section of the Knowledge Center. Besides that, we also have various sections on our website, which are basically like they talk about the events that have occurred or the media outreach that has happened and other things. Apart from that, we are available on social media platforms, including Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, etc. So whatever happens is instantly shared on the social media platforms across the various domains that we have. Second tool that we use to communicate with the world are the set of events and webinars that we host. We also do presentations at the end of the set of interns that join us. And we also do workshops. Like, for example, in the month of March, we held a workshop, which was a series of small workshops that happened for a period of like 3 weeks. And basis all the events that we do, we also generate a report which talks about what happened in that particular event and all. The third kind of tool that we use for communicating to the world, and this is a pretty recent one that we've included as part of our communications and outreach plan, that is public relations and advocacy. So our PR and advocacy team helps us in further engagement with larger audience. And we are happy to share that op-eds, opinion articles that Arnab sir has authored have been published in big media houses very recently, wherein he wrote an article and that got taken up by the Economic Times. And very recently, just yesterday, one of his articles on the monsoon and the impact, like how UDA framework can help in mitigating the impact of climate change, especially in correlation with the current erratic monsoon season that's going on. That got taken up in the Hindu Business Line. And Arnab sir has been writing a lot of articles, a series of articles that he did for Sunday Guardian as well. These were all feature articles that went out, and we are in the process of generating more of such articles in big media houses. We are also in close contact with platforms such as Indian Express, wherein we talked, especially Arnab sir had a discussion with one of the deputy editors, and he talked about the work that MRC does and our collaborations and other things. Next is a little bit brief about UDA. So in very generic term, as per my understanding, somebody who comes from a non-technical background, I feel underwater domain awareness stands for the desire to know what is happening underwater. And for this particular purpose and for reaching out to the public, to like general audience with really like non-technical background, we started with a platform called UDA Digest. So what is UDA Digest and when did it begin its journey? So UDA Digest is a platform that allows us to bring together diverse views in the form of articles, reports, commentaries, and soon we are going to be starting with monographs and short reports as well. UDA Digest began its journey in the year 2021. And through the concept of UDA Digest, we've been pushing the concept of underwater domain awareness for the past few years now. Okay, now that we all know about UDA and UDA Digest and other things, now I'd like to deep dive into the key domains that comes under the UDA Digest. So these are the key domains that come that are available under which we accept people's articles and all. So first is maritime security, then we have underwater archaeology, science and technology, geopolitics and IR, blue economy, sustainability and ESG, and climate change. So these are some of the examples of the articles that we've had on our platform, and in the next couple of slides, I'm going to take you through the platform that we have. So articles under maritime security domain have been captured, and some of the articles have been Indian Ocean region and UDA framework, India-Sri Lanka relations with the BIMSTEC, acoustic capacity and capability building in the tropical littoral waters. Other article was China's undersea Great Wall project. Some of the articles on our platform under the science and technology domain have been retrieving the oceans with AI, freshwater management. We've had our fellows and interns write a lot on the water quality management framework as well. We also had somebody who had written on hydropower race and dispute resolution in Indus Western rivers. And I think Catherine was the author for this particular article. Next, we've had people write to us on our platform on geopolitics and IR. Some of the examples have been creating awareness about UDA Digest amidst G20 meetings. So I was the one who wrote an article on this, and because currently India is holding the presidency of the G20, and we also have G20 Summit, which is coming up in the month of September on 9th and 10th. So that was the idea, the whole narrative about how UDA can be of some relevance in terms of like the G20 and all. Next, we've had Catherine who had written to us, who had written on the topic Indus Water Treaty and Kashmir conundrum. Then we've had articles on IOR and the UDA framework, and there was an article that I also I wrote, which was entitled Extreme Weather Conditions as a Result of Climate Change. So this domain is something like which is basically for the people from the social sciences background and all. Then we've had people who've written to us on underwater archaeology domain as well. Like Dr. Radhika Session ma'am wrote a very insightful article entitled Maritime History and Traditional Knowledge. We've had people who've written on topics such as regional overview of India's maritime heritage, beneath the blue, underwater archaeology in India, etc. So I'd like to talk about like some of the authors that we've had in the past. So as part of, so before that, I'd also like to tell you that as part of the fellowship and internships at MRC, it is compulsory for everybody who's part of the team and who's interning or doing a fellowship to share articles for our platform every month. And some of our fellows and interns who've written for us have been Ananya, Tripti, Kathy, Aradhya, Sanskar, Shlok, Rishika. So all these people have written really good articles and they've been placed on the platform as well. We've had really prominent writers who've written for us. First is, of course, Dr. Commander Arnaldas. Sir has been writing very regularly for the platform since the very beginning in 2021. And he's written articles on IOR, BIMSTEC, G20, India's relations with Sri Lanka, and other things also. And then we've had Pratap M. Heblikar, sir, and Major General B.S. Ranade, and Dr. Radhika Seshan, who've written for our platform in the past. So I'd like to share this happy news with all of you that we've had close to 90 articles on our platforms. It's 87 in total, and there are like 5 articles which are there in pipeline. So I am unsure if there's another platform which is writing on UD underwater domain awareness framework and topics related to the UDA and which have like these many articles on the platform. And there's a very rigorous process that goes out when it comes to publishing articles on the platform. It goes to rounds of assessments. There's a team that looks at the that does the plagiarism check, and then I do the grammatical check and the format in which the articles are written. There's a set format that we expect our writers to write for us. Like we don't expect the writers to just like randomly share the articles with us. There's a set format for it. So here, being the editor of the magazine, there's an SOP, statement of purpose, that I created, and like there are certain rules or certain tips that I share with the writers so that they can write for the articles. And this is how the SOP looks like, and it is shared with everyone who's interested to write for us. We suggest that you keep the headlines very crisp. You like stick to the word limit. The font and the font size has to be correct, and it's very important. And because UDA Digest is a platform that welcomes the articles on generic topics and generic topics, I mean topics which are of relevance for the current scenario. So we expect them to connect their articles on current scenario as well. And then we tell them to add graphics and illustrations because that just makes the article look more presentable and more attractive. And there's one more thing that we've added on the platform wherein we ask the authors to share the key highlights of the article so that it becomes easier for the readers to see what is there in the platform and what is there in the article and decide for themselves whether or not they want to go ahead and read it. So that was the SOP that we share with people who are interested to write for us. What is next? There are a couple of things that we've planned that are going to happen in the next few months, and we are doing a revamp of UDA Digest, wherein we are going to be segregating the articles that we get, wherein we will say that 800-word articles are going to be termed under commentary section, Then articles which are of 3,000 word limit, they are going to be termed as papers. And then if the article is going to go on till like 10K words, then we'll call it monograph or short reports. So that's what the plan is. So here I'm going to be discussing about the key milestones that UDA Digest has seen. So it was in 2021, February, March time period when the UDA Digest began its journey. And the key members who took it off ground were, one of them was Sridhar himself, then Arnab sir was involved, and there was a former colleague of ours, Arohi Kapadia, who contributed immensely for taking this off ground. Then in March 2022, we started a campaign and started reaching out to more number of people, and so that they can contribute and they are more aware of how things are at at MRC and what do we do for the UDA Digest platform. By October 2022, we had articles from prominent people. That was another milestone that we achieved. And by December 2022, we became the only magazine which allows experts to share their views on UDA. And that's how it is. And we currently have close to 90 articles. So we are very proud of that fact. Plus, we have created videos. And so this is another information that I'd like to share with you. On the basis of the articles that we received, we also took some of the articles which were great and which we thought were of great relevance, and we created videos out of them. And currently, I'm going to take you let's take a tour of the UDA Digest, and I'll also take you through the new website that Sridhar and Pranil, my colleagues, are preparing. So this is how the UDA Digest platform looks like. It has, these are the key domains: marine security, blue economy, sustainable ESG and climate risk, skilling India, geopolitics and IR, underwater heritage. That's how it goes. And so this is how the current website is, and soon we are going to be launching the new one. And this is how the new website is going to look like. Yes. So this is going to be the new way we are going to be working on, and this is how the UDA Digest e-magazine is going to look like in future. We are going to be doing a launch of it very soon. There are just bits of things which are going to be which are taking place at the back end, and the team is working on that. And once everything gets finalized, we'll have a session wherein we'd like to launch the UDA Digest platform. So that's about the UDA Digest platform. Thank you. And before we wrap up, I'm going to wrap up my thing, I also want to showcase one more thing that MRC has been working on. That is basically the e-learning modules on the basics of the underwater world. So we are happy to share that we've collaborated with the Capacity Building Commission of India on this thing. And we've done a set of e-learning modules for them, and which are going to be uploaded on their platforms. And they've approved it, and everything is finalized. We're just going to finalize everything, and the thing is going to be this e-learning module set is going to be there live on their platform. So this is how the e-learning module looks like. It has information about the course. It has information about the resource person. So currently, all the modules have been designed and developed by Arnab sir. So it has information about Arnab sir, and then summary of all the modules. Module 1, we have 10 modules in total that we've worked upon. And it has all the parameters, we've tried to fulfill all the parameters that CBC team had basically set layout for people to share the things. So these are all the e-learning modules. These are short, crisp 10-minute videos along with the quiz questions that we have. And at the end of each of these, there's a section which we call study material, wherein we've given all the study materials that students and the participants of the e-learning modules can use when they go through this. It has all the things, that publications and research material from Maritime Research Center. So that was about e-learning modules. My colleague Catherine discussed about the position papers. We're working on the position paper as well. There are like 10 position papers that MRC is planning to come out with. And we've recently got the position paper on skilling for enhanced blue economy design. And this is how the design version of the position paper is going to look like. We are currently in the process of partnering with big stakeholders, including CBC and others. So this is how, and this position paper basically talks about the blue economy and the uh, impact that the blue economy policy is going to have on the country in the coming months. Like Arnab has said, that the policy is going to be introduced in a very short period of time. So it has everything related to that, all the infographics and all. And I'd like to thank the designing team for designing this report. So that's about it. That's it from my end. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to call Arnab sir to take over. We'll have the remarks by the dignitaries, which are going to be followed by the remarks by the panel of research and advisory board. So, sir, you may take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishtha, and the team, Sridhar and Catherine as well, for a detailed presentation. There's a lot more work. There are a lot more team members who have contributed significantly to whatever we have tried to showcase. And I'm extremely pleased with their contribution. And many people have been associated with us and they have done remarkable contributions. So I must acknowledge that going forward. Now I would, before, as Nishtha said, before I come to the advisory board, I would request our senior participants to say a few words, starting with Apurva Kar, sir. Sir is from IRS. So you may kindly introduce yourself, half a second, and then talk about your comments. Kar, sir, if you can hear me. I think he is not available. Anybody else in the audience who would like to give their comments? Chaitanya, would you like to speak? Chaitanya, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, please go ahead. Kindly introduce yourself, Chaitanya. So happy to see you today. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I couldn't join early because it's really early in the morning here.
I know.
It's okay. But yeah, my name is Chaitanya Patil and I'm currently working as a professor at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow, UK. And I have been in contact with Arnab sir and this MRC Foundation for like more than a month. And we have been discussing various collaborations and that the work that MRC is going to do in India and also from the overseas activities point of view. And it's been a really good time discussing with Arnab sir and Sridhar about their activities. I couldn't join this program earlier today, but yeah, whatever I could find, it's really helpful. I really appreciate the activities that MRC is doing in India. It's really, really required at this moment. And the future is going to be really great. I would say keep it up whenever you require any work for any help or collaboration from our side or in future. I'm really, really happy to help. But I really think that the blue economy that government is going to announce will be really helpful, and MRC will play a key role over there. So yeah, keep it up, team. I would like to see all of you guys maybe in future. But yeah, thank you so much for the presentation, Sound.
Thank you, Dr. Chaitanya. Really appreciate you participating, and we definitely value our possible future collaboration. Today, unfortunately, we were supposed to have our potential collaborators from Tokyo University and Jamstech, but today they are sailing. So somehow I fixed the date based on their availability also, but last minute they had a change of plan, so they could not join. But we are extremely happy to report that there is significant interest abroad also to work with us, and we look forward to working with all of them and take the UDA forward. Anybody else from the audience who would like to speak?
Yeah, good noon, sir. This is Shubham Singh Chadak from the Department of National Security Studies, Central University of Jammu. And sir, here in our department, we are working on the maritime security. And for the master's student, we are having a paper on India's maritime security in the Indo-Pacific region. And many of my colleagues, they are working on Indo-Pacific, Western Indian Ocean, and all those things. And uh, many of our teachers, they are also having a good view about the Maritime Research Center, and they are going to have a chat on the mail with you so that we can have some kind of things together, because maritime domain is one of the most important domain in the contemporary world, and it is not a thing which we can neglect, despite we are here in the Jammu and Kashmir, which is a landlocked state, which is now a UT, but still the maritime domain is somehow impacting Jammu and Kashmir also. So right now my research supervisor is in the class, but if he would have here, he would have speaking the same things, and we will like to collaborate with you in the upcoming days, so that the newly coming students, they should also know about what maritime domain is and how it impact the almost every aspect of the today's world. So thank you, sir, for these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Subham. Before actually Anup sir and Shenoy sir will congratulate you for starting a maritime center in Kashmir. That's really remarkable, and we are more than happy to support you and work with you. Thank you so much. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Dr. Das, I'm Apurva. I think I did not
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
unmute myself. Yeah.
Please go
Thank
ahead,
you
sir.
so much for giving this opportunity to talk. And it's really I'm first time I'm attending such meetings, and I'm really excited. And it is such an important thing, and which you have emphasized much more, that it is essentially required to do something in this area, and we just cannot ignore. And one very positive message which you told us, that only India can do it, and which I really believe in. That only the amount of resources you have, amount of talent which you have, we are unparalleled. I fully believe in that, and we can really do great work in this area. One thing just I'd like to share a bit, that we have a lot of expertise in our surface area, means marine surface. I think those also needs to be those knowledge also needs to be assimilated and channelized in the undersea subsea domain also, because that there we have got a lot of experience, because we have been building ships. I think one of the oldest shipbuilding country in the world, and oldest ship sailing country in the world. So we have a lot of expertise in this area. We have to explore that, how much of that knowledge and skill can be channelized for this undersea area also. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was Apurva Karsa from, he has just finished his tenure with the Indian Registrar of Shipping. He was at a very senior position, and now he is consulting multiple maritime agencies. There was a message from Kasarupa Usha Naga Parsuna. Greetings to everyone. Sorry for texting here. I am having network issues. Myself, Usha from Odisha. I'm a millet-based startup entrepreneur and trainer also. First time I have attended this domain session. It was fully loaded with lots of information. Thanks for the session. Thank you very much for a very positive message. And I'm so happy that diverse people are finding interest in what you are doing. So I will now turn to our research advisory board. I can see, I think Vijay also could not continue. So Soman sir, I would request your comments, please.
Once again for inviting me to this research advisory board, and also the great work that MRC is doing. My compliments to everybody, all the researchers who have done phenomenal work, which was visible during the presentation. So principally, when I look at the underwater domain awareness with my little exposure in the Indian Navy and thereafter in the international relations, I feel that there is huge scope, and the scope has already been addressed in under various domains by the MRC. But I want to address just 2-3 points. The first point is sustainable peace. Whilst we all know about sustainable development goals, which were introduced by the United Nations in 2015, sustainable peace is a resolution which was introduced by the United Nations General Assembly and the United Nations Security Council simultaneously, concurrently in April 2016. It combines not only the sustainable development, but also human security. And this human security angle, as even Professor Radhika Session mentioned, that the community and the human security has become more and more important today, as you can see, with various conflicts in the world, from Yemen to Ukraine conflict to anything, the human is in the center. And it is the governance gaps that we find. I have mentioned about governance gaps to MRC earlier also. It is not only about policy gaps. It's about knowledge gap. It's about implementation gap. It's about the normative gap. And if you look at normative gaps from, Genocide Convention, UN Genocide Convention, to Red Cross, to Amnesty International, to landmines, all these have been promoted by institutions such as MRC in those days. And they became Nobel, they got Nobel Prize. So the people behind them and the institutions behind them created norms. Those norms finally became international regulations and policy. So the potential in the underwater domain is so huge, and the way the human is getting affected by it is calls for addressing normative gaps. And I thank you for the kind of articles that are there. They're clearly visible that they are being addressed. But also for Research Advisory Board, since I'm from the IR and strategic field, I also want to introduce the national security aspect. And I took a template from the UNESCO IOC, of which Professor Satish and I was a vice chairman a few years. There, that template is very beautiful. It provides how research is to be done. And what I have done is I've extrapolated that to national security also. So just one slide I am going to show and share, my screen. If you see this, is it visible?
Not yet, sir. Yes, sir. Now it's over.
It's visible now?
Yes, sir. Please
Okay.
go ahead, sir.
So if you see that national security aspect, whilst the sustainable development and ocean sciences and being addressed by UNESCO and IOC, which talks about human effect and fragile ecosystem, etc. So that you can easily, I'll leave this presentation behind. But on the national security front, there are vulnerabilities which have to be understood. We also should be able to measure and quantify the security and the strategic changes that are taking place. We should also be able to alert or do risk assessment and contingency planning, advise the respective organizations. We should be able to evaluate, that means by monitoring strategic environment and inform security bodies, bridging the governance gaps. And of course, manage the various tools. I can see that a lot of tools have been developed by UDA. They will be able to address those many of the concerns that have come up today. And finally, studies and innovations. So in the end, I think that how do we translate this into outcomes? So the outcomes are here, research outcomes at MRC is my recommendation. This is a long presentation. It can be used by MRC. So I thought with that, I will finish and I'll give my comments here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll definitely use this slide and come back to you in the next meeting on whatever we have been able to fulfill and what is our plan for the future. I'll now request Dr. Satish Shenoy, sir, to kindly give his comments as the chairman of the RAB, sir.
Thank you, Arnab, as well as my congratulations to your entire team. As you know that I have been associated with MRC for the past maybe 4+ years. I think you had that workshop in Pune University. sometime in 2018 or early 19. That's what I remember. From there, I see that MRC has expanded tremendously in various activities, not only on the ocean acoustics, in the other fields as well. And that way, I must congratulate Sridhar and Ishita for presenting the activities, various activities at MRC. My suggestions, being the member of RAC, is that especially the presentation by Sridhar, it presented various activities, different projects, etc., etc. I would suggest that now it is a time for you to decide on which are the areas you would like to focus on, because many of these activities, it came from the students' projects. So many are not exactly connected, but they are within the domain of underwater domain, etc. But nevertheless, I think any institution to um, make a seal of its own, and to stand separate and tall among the others, you had to specialize on certain areas. So I think that is my first suggestion. And also, when the RAC looks at these projects, little more details on what was the objective of the project and how far it has been achieved. That information also can be included in the presentations. Third suggestion is that see, for example, the projects like shrimp culture, as well as deep sea mining, etc., etc. I would suggest that you should also look at, because shrimp culture, a lot of work has been done by institution like CMFRI, which has headquarters in Cochin with several regional centers. And similarly, the other institutions like SIBA has done a lot of work for the inland fisheries, etc., etc. And you should bring out what is the UPSC in your work. That should stand out. Otherwise, it should not happen that other institutions are also doing and MRC also is doing. That should be avoided. That what is the unique selling point or a unique idea behind this project, which is not covered by the other institutions. Perhaps that may require some interactions with these institutions. Similarly, the deep sea mining, for example, NIOT has developed that mining system, or I should not say developed, they are inching closer to the demonstration mining. And the gadget which was displayed by Sridhar, how well it is going to speed up the issues, or how it can be integrated with the system which NIOT is developing. So these kind of thoughts also should go in developing these systems. Apart from that, I would suggest MRC little more like that project which you have done on impact of climate change on climate change. I think that's a good aspect which MRC should pursue, because not many other larger institutions are concentrating on those areas, other than they are trying to understand the science of climate change, or the large scale features of climate change. I think MRC is in a unique position to pick up some regions, specific regions, and try to understand what are the regional implications, or what are the implications on that population of that region because of the climate change. These are smaller regions, but they are very effective and very necessary for that region, especially when the policy makers looks at the aspects, they are more than understanding the science of the climate. They will be interested in knowing how in their constituency or their region, how this climate change is playing the role and how it is affecting the life cycle and the life of the population there. So I think MRC can concentrate on such areas. Similarly, another aspect is this marine spatial planning, because marine spatial planning, as put up by IOC, it talks about a holistic planning of the coastal area, because now the Sagarmala and other activities are picking up. The coast, not only it is a delicate area, it is also full of conflicts, because the who are living there, they are in conflict with the industries which are planning to go and establish there, and then several lot of other engineering solutions, etc., etc. So and NGOs, they will also chip in if there is a project coming up, then the NGOs also will chip in. So I think MRC should look at these issues a little holistically and suggest solutions for marine spatial planning. That will be another area where MRC will be able to concentrate. And the detection of ships using acoustics, that also I feel that it is a unique area which many other institutions have not attempted in large scale. I think MRC has a unique position in pursuing that, especially in developing techniques how to identify enemy ships or dark ships, as Sridhar was talking about, how to detect them using the acoustics, and how a operational model can be set up for that. And another issue which I would like to highlight is on the economic impact of climate change on aquaculture. That is another aspect which you may have to pursue along with CMFRI and those kind of institutions. And also my final comment is that since MRC is not restricting your interactions with a specific government department, because as from the report of Arnab, I understand that you are interacting with Indian Navy as well as with Chamber of Commerce as well as with several ministries in the government of India. See, one reason I feel that why this scientific process is not getting translated to the actionable items, or they are not becoming actionable, is because there is a disconnect between the researchers and the policymakers. The policymakers are looking to address certain specific questions, which the researchers are not aware of, or not they are not giving enough importance for those questions. I think that gap has to be bridged, and I think with your vast reach of with various stakeholders, that should be possible. You will be able to understand what the research, what questions these policymakers are trying to answer, and encourage the researchers to find solutions or find answers for those questions which policymakers are interested in answer, or which they are trying to answer, and channel the scientific process or science research in that direction. I think if that is done, we will see that the science becomes more actionable rather than more academic. I think that is one point I would encourage MRC to look at by considering your unique capabilities and your unique strength in that area. So these are some of the points which I would like to bring out from this whatever presentations I listened from your colleagues as well as from your presentation. And finally, thank you very much for inviting me to be a member of this research advisory board of MRC, and I cherish my association with MRC. Thank you very much.
Dr. Shenoy, sir, thank you so much. We have taken note of each and every point that you mentioned. And as I had declared in the beginning, each and every suggestion, comments from the Research Advisory Board will be noted down. And when we start our next meeting, which we are definitely going to do every quarter, we will first try and answer each and every point, whatever we have done, whatever we could do, and if we could not do, why we could not do, and then seek your advice and take things forward. But before I go to Prafulji for giving his final comments, I would also like to request Anup sir, because Dr. Satish Shenoy sir has brought in a very important point, how science needs to be connected with policy and how science needs to be made more effective for policy making. I mean, this disconnect actually kind of builds, actually kind of exponentially increases the gap between the two communities. I mean, the scientific community is equally important. None of us can actually undermine that. And policymakers are also equally important. But that disconnect actually becomes a major issue. So, Mudgal sir, kindly comment on this.
Arnam, this is absolutely right. And this is not really a new problem. This has been a perennial problem. As a young boy, like most of your, researchers today, I was also at one point a researcher, and I worked with the Scientific and Engineering Research Council for a while. And our main problem always was these two tracks, the research and the policy. These two tracks were not converging. And the problem lies because the policy is seeking a solution to a problem. And sometimes the research is not immediately seeking a solution. Research is creating an enabling environment which can then help you find a solution, but not really specifically going into finding that solution. As a result, the convergence becomes difficult. But I think, the scientific community must understand, one is the basic research, which of course you keep doing, right? Because in the long run, it gives you a lot of support. But they must understand what kind of practical challenges the society is facing. Can we find some simple solutions to those problems or not? If we are able to find a solution, you will see suddenly the policy will come to you. They will say, oh, this is the fellow who gives solutions. Because you have to understand, the policy person is answerable to his constituency. If he is not able to carry a solution to them, they will say, yeah, what do I do now? So I think there is a lot of merit in relating the research work with the solutions the society is seeking. Otherwise, I have seen very learned people in a way not able to fully get convinced that you can do research without finding a solution, right? Because we are still relatively, we do not have abundance of money only to spend on research without solutions. So that problem has to be identified. And as I said, MRC is a solution finding institution. We are not a university, right? So I think we need to identify whatever domain we are working on. In that domain, we should identify some examples on the ground. And then let's see, can we solve those problems in some manner or the other? Because at the end of the day, the human factor is central to anything that we do. And if that research or technology development doesn't help that human factor, then it can't sustain. Now, for example, Dr. Banerjee mentioned about the security aspect, linking the whole thing to security. Of course, you see, he mentioned about the UN. You know, there is a UN Human Security Report. I was shocked to read that report, which says 97% of humanity feels insecure for one reason or the other. Can you imagine? 97%. And when you look into why they feel insecure, there are the conventional reasons for feeling insecure, right? Law and order, wars, disturbances, price rise, all kinds of things, right? But today, a large number of people are also feeling insecure because of the climate change issues, the environmental degradation. Now, for example, in the last monsoon, anybody who has watched those news items of, landslides, massive landslides, and people being washed away with that, along with their cars and houses and trucks, would it not cause a feeling of insecurity? This is where, in fact, the science is supposed to provide an answer. First, for making sure that people understand the risk better. Our understanding of the risk has to be scientific. And many cases, you will see, the fear goes away when you scientifically understand a problem. Half the time, the fear is because you don't understand the problem. Once you understand, automatically your fear subsides. But then, in many cases, the fear will not subside unless the same science provides a solution. So this, I think, is Dr. Shenoy's observations are absolutely pertinent. And this is what I have been saying, the information does not have long-term utility if it doesn't provide a solution. Because we are seeking solutions as a society. And the research must, in one way or the other, provide a solution. And then only the policy will come to you. Right? I think I have commented too long on.
Thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate. And I would request Prafulji to give his closing comments and also, in some sense, thank the RAB members, Ambassador Mudgal, and the participants. Prafulji, over to you. Kindly unmute yourself, Prafulji. Unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ambassador Mudgal. You started on the welcome address only. You had mentioned that we have to, MRC has to come up with practical, visible, and actionable solutions. And it was so right that Dr. Shenoy also echoed the same sentiment. And I mean, we came where we started, we completed the loop there. And I'm so glad that Dr. Shenoy, Professor Radhika Session, Commodore Somen Banerjee, Professor Varsha Kelkar Mane, and Dr. Vijay Kumar have agreed to join the Research Advisory Board. Thank you so much, sir. We welcome you warmly on behalf of MRC. It was a very interesting session, and I'd like to thank Sridhar Prabhuraman, especially because he has been supporting MRC from Australia all the way across, halfway across the world, whilst pursuing his studies. Thank you, Sridhar, for all your valuable taking out time while studying. And I'd like to thank Catherine and Nishita Vishwakarma also, and the very able team. I've been associated with MRC since the last 6.5 years, and I feel very happy that MRC has been able to generate such a huge body of work over the last so many years. It's very heartening to see so many people have associated with, started with just 2-3 people, and now it's a team of 30. Congratulations, Dr. Das, for building up a team and addressing this very important domain of the underwaters. The waters as such are global commons. It's a very huge domain. Of the 3 global commons, water is one of them, and understanding and enabling the understanding of water is, like Ambassador Mudgal said in his opening remarks, that we have hardly understood 5% of it, and 95% remains to be delved into, to be gone into at depth, so that we can understand and have a better understanding, because unless we understand, we can't do much. So, and the only way to understand water is sound. Sound is, sonar is the only signal which propagates, and it cuts across so many domains. If you have to understand water, sound is the most common element there. And I'd like to thank the whole team at MRC for having done a great job. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And especially a big thank you to the Research Advisory Board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prafulji. Thank you, Satish Shenoy sir, Soman Banerjee sir, Ambassador Mudgal sir, and others who could not continue because they're all actually in academia. So on a working day, missing class is an important is a problem. So, but we are still very grateful to everybody, and thank you very much, sir. And as I said, we will come back to you with our response, and whatever comments have been given will be noted down meticulously and followed up. Thank you very much, sir. And I also want to acknowledge Mehul, who's always been the back end, who's never seen, for conducting all our webinars absolutely flawlessly. You don't get to hear his word, but see his face, but he is the guy, and I'm so much assured when he is around. And of course, my other teammates. Thank you very much, sir. Namaste.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.